Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trailokyam Sacharacharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Twameva Mata cha Pita, Twameva Bandhuscha Sakha, Twameva Vedya Dravinam, Twameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Twameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So tonight we begin the 4th chapter, Jnana Yoga. So will you help us out, please, Deepa?
Sure.
Did I miss it?
If you're not asking a question, please remember to mute yourself.
The Blessed Lord, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Imam Vivasvate Yogam, Proktavana Ham Hamavyayam, Vivaswan Manave Praha, Manurikshva Kave Bravit. I taught this imperishable yoga to Vivaswan. Vivaswan taught it to Manu. Manu taught it to Ishkavaku.
So what Krishna is saying is that he taught yoga to the sun, to the beginning of the royal solar dynasty in ancient times. What he's inferring here is one of the most beautiful parts of this work. Anthropologists say that every one of us can trace our genetic lineage all the way back to a primordial Eve in the Olduvai Gorge, they think, in southern Africa. That there were other lines of human development, but they died out. So we're all related to this one woman. She's the mother of the human race. And it's actually pretty recent. It's only about 65,000 years ago. There was a genetic bottleneck, it seems, there. So even though we may not know our ancestry going back 65,000 years, genetics proves that, in fact, we're all related. And there's an unbroken genetic lineage. A man and a woman get together and they make babies, and it goes on and on and on and on. So, what Krishna is implying is that the science of self knowledge, the very teaching that I'm giving to you, is as old as humanity. Why? Well, I don't know. Did we have philosophy back then? Well, actually, real yoga is rooted in direct experience. And the facts of all of our experience is this: we have a physical nature, we have an emotional life, we have a thought life, we have a sense of individuality. But if anyone, anytime through time, or anywhere in the world, goes through this process of self inquiry and really inquires into who am I, we all come up with the same answer. Nothing there. There's just this vast, empty space of consciousness. Chidananda Rupaham, Shivoham, Shivoham. I am of the form of bliss consciousness. I am Shiva. I am auspiciousness. And I learned this knowledge from Swamiji. Swamiji learned it from Swami Tapovanam. Swami Tapovanam studied, I don't know the fellow's name, I think he was the Shankaracharya at the Sringeri Mutt at the time in the late 19th century. I don't know who his guru was. So these names are lost in history. They all trace back to Shankara. We know Shankara's, his teacher was Govindapada, his teacher was Gaudapada. Who was his teacher? I do not know. But it goes back. This unbroken transmission of this knowledge. Now, of course, there are people who have had spontaneous enlightenment. It happens. But most of the time, it's passed from one person to another. So here what Krishna is implying in the language of poetry is this science of self-knowledge, this jnana yoga, is as old as humanity. Next verse.
Evam parampara prapta mimam rajarshyo viduhu sakale neha mahata yogo nashtha param tapa. This knowledge, handed down thus in regular succession, the royal sages knew. This yoga, by long lapse of time, has been lost here, O Paramtapa, burner of the foes.
So we have what we call the Guru Shishya Parampara, this regular succession of knowledge. But what happens at certain periods of human history, wickedness starts to prevail, or some great cataclysm, war or famine or pandemic. And for a time, it may seem to be lost. But within humanity, there's what I call a salvific principle. meaning our yearning, our longing for liberation, causes the Lord to incarnate in the form of what we in Hinduism would call an avatar, a divine incarnation. But on a far more intimate and daily level, I tell people all the time, the students create the teacher. It's not like somebody says, I've decided I'm going to be a guru and I'm going to go out and hang a shingle. I mean, there are some people who try to do that. But what really happens is it's the longing for freedom in the students that draws this teaching out of a woman or a man of wisdom. So it is our yearning, our earnestness. Nisargadatta Maharaj stresses this over and over again. He was not a lettered man. He did not spend time with his guru till he attained enlightenment. His guru died. But he was earnest. He heard the teaching and then he applied it. So the locus of the power for our enlightenment is in your own bosom. It's our yearning, what they call mumukshutva, the burning desire for freedom, for liberation. And that draws to us a teacher when we're ready, life circumstances that are perfect for us. And guru is a principle. Swamiji used to say the external guru, the physical guru, is a temporary psychological device. Guru is everywhere. Every life experience is guru, if your eyes are open enough to see. And ultimately, it's your own self. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
स एवायं मया तेद्य योगः प्रोक्तः पुरातनः भक्तोऽसि मे सखा चेति रहस्यं एतदुत्तमम्. The same ancient yoga has been today taught to you by me, for you are my devotee and my friend. This is a supreme secret.
So, what Krishna is saying, the teaching that we find in the Gita, this very dynamic that we have, is the same teaching that it's always been, that Krishna taught to the sun, to the beginning of the solar dynasty. Now, Vedanta is not the only wisdom tradition that's valid. Sufism is valid, Buddhism is valid, mystical Christianity, it's there. It's all over the world. But it usually takes the form of this transmission of this wisdom from one human being to another. And it's not about saying, oh, my guru is Shirdi Sai Baba. He's dead, but he's my guru anyway. I'm not saying that Shirdi Sai Baba was not a great Mahatma, but he's not your friend. You don't have a personal relationship. Or people, they have a guru and they never see him, they never talk to him, they have no communication. That can be of value. It's just like a person worshiping Krishna, or a Catholic going and having adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. You know, there's some idol that you have there that symbolizes what's divine. But what Krishna is saying here, that in the real, authentic Guru Shishya Parampara, the transmission of this knowledge from teacher to student is personal. The Guru's your friend. And secret to a guru, a fit student is an object of desire. Because then they can pour themselves out for the benefit of the student. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Arjuna Vacha Aparam Bhavato Janma Param Janma Vivasvatah Kathametat Tvijaniyam Tvamadau Proktavaniti. Arjun said, later was your birth, and prior was the birth of Vivaswan. How am I to understand that you taught this yoga in the beginning?
Yes. So, because at this point in the scripture, Arjuna is identified with his body, he identifies Krishna as Krishna's body. How can you have taught yoga to the sun? Your birth was much, much later. There's all sorts of implication in who is Krishna. Now, let's review the 3 levels at which or in which Gita teaches. And it's all mixed up. So you have to suss out which level is being taught by the context of the verse. The lowest level is as a Dharma Shastra. Tells us what to do, gives us do's and don'ts in life. That's for those people who are identified at the level of the body. The next level is people who identify with Arjuna as the universal yogi. Essentially, those of us who are identified with the subtle body, the mind and intellect. Then Gita teaches from the level of identifying with Krishna. Whenever Krishna talks about himself, he's talking about yourself. Not your body, not your ego, but the self in you. So, your body may have been born 20, 30, 40, 60, 70 years ago. But you are nitya, eternal. Unborn. Now, even at the level of the subtle body. Next verse, let's see what he says.
Sorry, I'm a little klutz today. Here. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava charjuna tanyaham veda sarvani natvam vetha param tapa. Many births of mine have passed, as well as yours, O Arjun. I know them all, but you know them not, O Param Tapa, scorcher of foes.
So there's many ways we can, again, suss out the meaning of this. At the most exoteric level, Krishna as an avatar, a divine incarnation of God, remembers all of his incarnations going back to the beginning of time. Some of us may have memory of some of our prior lives. Many of us don't. And it's not necessary for self-realization. But let's look at a deeper understanding of the verse. Who is it who is the conscious sentient being that's knowing Jim's body, Jim's mind, Jim's intellect, Jim's ego? The self. Who is it who is knowing Deepa's body, Deepa's feeling, Deepa's thoughts, Deepa's ego? The self. And it's the same with Mark and Fang and all the other people who are here tonight. It is Krishna who is knowing the incarnation of us all and who has known the incarnation of all people, all prior births are known by consciousness. When I was a little boy, who knew it? I did. When I became an adolescent, who knew it? I did. Now I'm an adult, who knows it? I do. And it's the same for you and for all people. So who is the knower of all incarnations through all of time, in all places? The self. So that's the deeper meaning of this verse. Next one.
Ajopi sannavya Ajopi bhutana bhutanamishwaropi san prakritim swamadhisthaya sambhavat myatma mayaya. Though I am unborn and am of unperishable nature, and though I am the Lord of all beings, yet ruling over my own nature, I take birth by my own Maya.
So we have here this apparent relationless relationship between consciousness and the equipment. So the body is born, it lives and it dies. All experiences are born, they live and they die. But the self in me is ajapi, unborn. And yet it ever illumines the body, mind, intellects of all people, all beings, actually. How? Through Maya. Now, Maya is a very interesting word. One etymology comes from ma, which means not. That which is comprised of not. This is N-O-T, not K-N-O-T, not. I like to define it as the power of the infinite, whereby the impossible seems possible. How is it that consciousness, which is one without a second and changeless, seems to fork into subject object? When the object, in fact, is nothing but consciousness appearing as name and form. It's impossible, yet it seems to happen. And in that forking, the phenomena is always changing. And the noumena, the knower, is changeless. Ages rise and fall. Civilizations rise and fall. In the end, galaxies and suns rise and fall. The consciousness, the substratum, is always there, always immovable, which each one of us experiences as I. Just look to the phenomena of your own life. The mystery of everything coming and going and changing and aging and gain and loss and love and separation, all of it. Yet I, consciousness in you, as you, that is you, is always there, untouched, uninvolved witness of it all. Now, this whole subject of incarnation is a very interesting one. Normally, the word literally means to take flesh. Carne in Spanish, meat. So to incarnate means to take flesh. So, are you in the body, or is the body in you, and is it really meat? And the way to look at it as a yogi, do you incarnate into a dream? My experience is I have a dream body, and from that dream body, I have a locus of perception. I see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. from the viewpoint of that body. I have a dream ego. I see a world of name and form outside that I relate to, thoughts and feelings inside. But am I in the dream, or is the dream in me? When you wake up, oh man, was that a vivid dream I had last night? The dream is in you. You are not in the dream. You don't go someplace. It's all inside your mind. And yoga thunders, all of this is no different. The only distinction is your individual dream is inside your individual mind. Thank God Deepa doesn't know what I dream about. But the Lord himself is dreaming the phenomenal universe. We're characters, as it were, in Ishwara's dream. But the Lord of it all is you, Aham, Paramatma, the self, which is you. I saw something posted on the Facebook. Have to paraphrase it. And someone was saying, don't be worried if you're afraid of dying. Everybody dies. You'll be very successful at it. It's inevitable. But you, the consciousness, are unborn, unchanging, and undying. There's nothing to fear. It's safe. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Can I share something, Jim?
Please.
The next two verses, verse 7 and 8, when I was growing up, they used to screen the Mahabharata on TV every morning, Sunday morning. And it used to start with this title sequence where it's time narrating the Mahabharata. And the title sequence would end with the song that ended with these two verses. So every kid in India growing up in the 80s, 90s knows these two verses by heart. I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, can you sing them the way they did in the TV show?
I could give it a shot.
Whatever. But share them with us.
Do you really want me to sing it out for you like that?
Whatever. Be creative.
Yeah. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirбhavati bharata abhyutanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge.
Wonderful. And the English, please.
Sure. Verse 7 translates to, whenever there is a decay of righteousness, O Bharata, and a rise of unrighteousness, then I manifest myself. Verse 8 is,
Let's take that one first,
Okay.
and then we'll do verse 8. So in verse 7, did Swamiji put the two of them together as well?
No.
Okay. So what do we mean by that? Again, the exoteric meaning is it's the longing, the suffering of humanity that invokes the incarnation of the Lord, for the avatar to appear. The deeper meaning is most of us do not turn to the spiritual life until we've hit what we call in the 12-step programs a bottom. We have some crisis. We've been living our lives in a way which causes us to suffer. That doesn't mean we're a drug addict or a murderer or a thief. Our unrighteousness may be hanging on to resentment, dwelling in regret, living in fear, getting caught up in relationships that don't work, starting on a career that we don't like, but we don't know how to get out of it, losing a child, losing a parent. So it's our attachment, our identification, and our extroversion into the world in some way. This is the deeper understanding of what Krishna is saying about unrighteousness. And it's theoretically possible to turn to the spiritual life out of inspiration, just because you love God. Few of us come to the Lord for that reason. Most of us find that suffering is the touchstone to spiritual growth. So we will continue to suffer until we begin to turn our minds to the infinite. And it can be for lifetimes. The more we turn away from the way we're designed to live, the more we suffer. And this is the unrighteousness that Krishna is talking about. And what finally happens? God help me! One of the greatest of all prayers. Now, unfortunately, most of us think of God as a pinch hitter in a crisis. Oh my God, the cop's behind me and I've been drinking all night. God help me, get me out of this jail, But the real deep spiritual bottom is when we're sick and tired of the life that we've been living. And we ask the deep question, there must be more. There must be more. The part of us that seeks for release, for freedom, for a greater truth, a better life, that's Krishna within us. Coming into that age of unrighteousness to save us. It's very real. Very, very real. And we've all had those moments. How most of us get on the spiritual path. Any thoughts on this? Number 8. We did the Sanskrit. So what's the English?
Sorry, just bringing up my screen. For the protection of the good, for the destruction of the wicked, and for the establishment of righteousness, I am born in every age.
So for the protection of the good. So this is on so many levels. We learn through suffering to change the way in which we live. Bad habits, way we treat people. For the destruction of what's evil, where we're able to let go of those things in our lives that don't serve us. And here he says, I come from age to age. Again, we can look at on the outer, we have the Buddhas, the Krishnas, the Lao Tzus, the Guru Nanaks, etc., who come to make a big difference and change the world. But personally, from crisis point to crisis point, when we have crises in our lives, it's an invitation to deepen our abidance in the self, to deepen our commitment to practice. Any thoughts on this? Now, embedded in these two verses is a promise. Whatever your suffering, your calamity, will God intervene in your life and save you? I promise you that it will happen. If you turn to God. Now, does that mean you won't be sick? No. I'm not saying that you're gonna get what you want and the externals are gonna be fixed. Will your auntie who has cancer live? I can't say that. But you will find the tools to be able to match calamity with serenity. And through each of these crises, you'll find that your shraddha, your faith, will get deeper if you use it for spiritual practice. God's not pushy, though. God will not enter the human heart uninvited. Sometimes we have these moments of grace out of the blue, it happens. But by and large, we must choose. We must choose to do our swadhyaya, our self-study, our manana, our thinking, our dhyana, our meditation, our satsang, our association with the wise, the yamas and the niyamas, taking a middle path, moving away from destructive habits, moving toward ways of living in the world that are conducive to a sattva mind. We have to choose these things. God will help us, but God's not pushy. Any thoughts on this? You have a beautiful voice, Deepa.
Thank you, Jim.
We have to hear you sing more. Next verse.
Janma karma cha me divya mevam yo vetti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma neti mameti sorjuna. He who thus knows in true life my divine birth and action, having abandoned the body, he is not born again. He comes to me, O Arjuna.
So again, it's not about, oh, I know Krishna was there from the beginning of time and he's the supreme personality of Godhead. I worship and adore Lord Krishna. Then I'm going to get saved. There's a deeper meaning. Again, when Krishna talks about himself, he's talking about the self, meaning the self in you and me. So the person who knows that it's the body that's born and dies, it's the mind that goes through all its changes, it's the intellect that has its doubts and certainties. But I am none of those. And when a person understands I'm not the body, not the mind, not the intellect, not even the unconscious tendencies, the vasanas. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. And you see, you were never born in the first place. You don't come to Krishna. You realize Krishnami. I am Krishna. Krishnoham, Krishnoham. What is liberation? Let's answer that question. Both bondage and liberation occur to the mind. The self is already liberated. The self is already free. What is my bondage? There is no other bondage than the deeply rooted conviction that I'm bound, meaning I think I'm my body. There is no other liberation than the deeply rooted conviction in the mind, rooted in direct experience. I am not the body. I am Brahman. The self is not that which gets liberated. It's the mind that undergoes the transformation. Self doesn't need to be liberated. Yourself is already free. It's kind of like this. Anybody see my glasses? I've lost my glasses. I've looked all over the house. Where are my glasses? Where are my glasses? What am I going to do? Oh, there they are. I had them all along. So also the person says, I do not know who I am. I'm a miserable worm. I'm in bondage. I'm suffering. I need to find myself. I need to attain the self. I need to achieve the self. At the moment of realization, what does the Shishya realize? Oh, it's me. And it's always been me. I was never born. I never was this bound person. It was like a very long, bad dream. Next verse. This is 12, correct?
This is tangent.
10. Okay, I got lost.
वीतरागभयो भयक्रोधा मन्मया मामुपाश्रितः बहवो ज्ञानतपसा पूता मद्भावमागतः. Freed from attachment, fear, and anger, absorbed in me, taking refuge in me, purified by the fire of knowledge, many have attained my being.
Yes. So, first of all, many people have attained self realization. It's not difficult, it's rare. It's rare because people don't want it and they don't know about it. It's not difficult. And here Krishna gives us insight into what do we need to do to be able to have this experience. So, what's the first idea? Would you repeat it for us, please, Deepa?
Freed from attachment, fear, and anger.
Yes. So, first thing we have to do is let go of our attachments to the world. This is subtle. Many people misunderstand it and they think, oh, I have to get rid of all the objects and run around in an orange dress and a begging bowl. That's going to fix it. No. Would that it were that simple. The world is not the problem. The problem is attachment. So we need to practice vairagya, firm desire and to give up all attachments to enjoyments gained through the senses and all identification with any personal sense of self. Why are we afraid? Well, we're afraid we're not going to get what we want, or we're afraid we're going to lose what we have. And ultimately, we're afraid because I think I'm my body, I'm going to die. You're going to die. You will not be touched by it. So when we have this transfer of identity from the body consciousness to the awareness, this fear leaves us. We've talked before about what yoga's definition of anger is. Anger is thwarted desire or unmet expectation. So if the fear is I'm not going to get what I want or I'm going to lose what I have, the anger arises when I don't get what I want or what I have is taken from me. Or I have an expectation that I'm going to get what I want and it doesn't happen. So the woman or man of wisdom is content. They have santosha, contentment. They're content with whatever the world brings. Doesn't mean we don't have fun and don't enjoy. We don't grasp. We don't clutch. We don't fearful that I'm not going to be happy if I don't have this. And the more we're attached, when we lose it. I didn't say if. Always it will go. The deeper the attachment, the more the suffering. Ego strategy. I'm unhappy because I don't have what I want. And that's a lie. I'm unhappy because I'm stuck wanting. It's the vancha. It's the wanting itself that is the suffering. Did I get all the pieces of that? Would you read the verse for me one more time, please, Deepa?
Sure. Freed from attachment, fear, and anger, absorbed in me, taking refuge in me.
Okay, that part I didn't get to. Okay, so here's another secret. The human mind needs to be attached to something. Wait a minute, Jim. I thought you said we had to get rid of our attachments. Yes. How do we do it? Attach the mind to something real. If I attach the mind to people, places, things, and situations, they will go away. So yoke the mind to the self. That's the meaning of yoga. Yoga comes from the root yuj, which means to join. Yoke the mind to the self. The yogi develops this trick of being able to let go of the world, absorb the mind in the self. Way back in the second verse, or the second chapter, verse 55, Krishna says, when a person casts off all the desires of the mind, O Partha, and is satisfied in the self, by the self, then they're said to have attained to steadiness. So it's not just letting go of the world, it's also this Atmaramana, this reveling in my own self nature. This is the true meaning of worship. This is the true meaning of devotion. And the neat thing about it, wherever you go, there you are. Yourself is never absent. It's free. It won't rot your liver. So you don't have to look your best. It's always available. All right. This is a good place to stop. What number did we stop on? Was that 12 or 11?
It was 10. It was verse
10?
10. Yeah.
I keep counting higher. I don't know why. It's because I'm avoiding verse 13. We'll get to that next week. Okay. All right, we have a few minutes for questions. Questions on anything we covered tonight or any other issues that may have come up. Going once.
I don't have a question, Jim. I just have a comment. I was very surprised when you said that the guru also has attachments and their object of desire is of its student.
Didn't say he had attachments. I said he had an object of desire.
Ah, okay.
There's a difference. Did you catch the meaning there?
Yes. I got it. Thanks.
Hey, Jim.
Yoga never says that we do not have joy in the world. Understand that. Let me go through the paradigm. So the fool dances with an object. When desire and object of desire become one. Oh, that was where the happiness is. It's in the object. But the yogi, a desire arises in the bosom, a preference. Force of the past maturing. There's no illusion as to what it is. If there are widgets around, great. If there's not, no big deal. But if a widget is around and you dance with the widget, when desire and object of desire become one, oh, that stopped my mind. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. There's no delusion that the joy is in the object. It is a mediated experience of the self, meaning I use the medium of the object to experience myself. It's very important. Any questions about that?
Jim, I've got a question, but it's not about that. Is that okay?
All right, go ahead. Is that Fang?
Yes, that's fine. Hey, Jim. My question is, can you talk a little bit about the cave of the heart? Because I know it's come up before in prior conversations, especially when it comes to meditation and how that's related to it.
So the cave of the heart occurs a lot in both the Vedic literature and some of the later Smriti. And it's a metaphor. Do not get caught up in literalism. So the cave of the heart is when the intellect and the mind have merged. What does that mean? When the intellect, the frequency and the volume of thought has slowed way, way down. And in the mind, all sense of struggle has ceased. Then what is there is the vast space of consciousness in which thought or feeling arises. Another way to look at it, if it's a bear cave, the bear is content, the cave is context. If it's a mountain lion cave, the mountain lion is content, cave is context. So the Hridaya Guhyam, the cave of the heart, thought and feeling is content. Awareness is context. It's poetry. So don't get caught up. For example, at the end of Kathopanishad, there's what we call an upasana, which is like a devotional practice. Meditate on the self like a flame the size of a thumb in the cave of the heart. That's what it literally says. So people are going, okay, I'm going to look inside and see, do I see a little flame? Oh, I saw it. You know, no, it's poetry. It's poetry. Now, many people get their energy stuck in their head. For some people, it can be of value to kind of move the focus of your attention in meditation down to your heart chakra, your Hridaya chakra, which is located in the center of the chest between the nipples. And just kind of center your energy there. And that will help you get out of an overactive head. But again, that's a very surface upasana, like practice to do. Was that helpful, Fang?
Yeah, that was helpful. Although, Jim, if you don't mind me asking, and maybe I misheard this, but you said basically when that happens, there's the vast space of consciousness in which no thought or feeling arises, right? Isn't that samadhi in some ways? Is this just another way of saying
Don't
samadhi?
get caught up in words. Don't get caught up in words. One of the things that your mind likes to do is figure it out. Don't worry about, is it this or is it that? You know, just keep doing your practice. Just pay attention to your own direct experience.
Okay.
Don't try to go to hypotheses.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks, Jim.
Good question. In Mandukya Upanishad, one of the terms that Gaudapada uses is achintyam, meaning it's unthinkable. And one of the things that doesn't work is to see Vedanta as the acquisition of data. Thinking that if I read enough books and compare this to that and this stuff like that, that's how I'm going to figure it out. And it's achintyam, it's unfigure-outable. Back to second chapter of Gita again. She who knows it not. If you think you've got it figured out, you don't know it. She who knows it not knows it. Come to a place of unknowing. Is that samadhi? Who cares what you call it? Samadhi can be a very problematic and loaded term. I wouldn't worry about it. Any other questions or comments?
Jim, this is Walt. Could you just
Hi,
quickly?
Walt.
Hi, Jim. I didn't say hi earlier. Could you just briefly go over what Maya is again?
Maya is the power of consciousness, whereby pure awareness, which is one without a second, which is indivisible and immovable, seemingly manifests within itself the entire universe. Maya is the cause of all of this. So again, to take it back to Vedanta becomes pretty easy to understand if you really examine the dream state. How do you dream? Why do you dream? What happens? How is it that your mind seems to fork into a dreamer inside a dream body, seeing a dream world? We can call that mini Maya. Does that make a little more sense?
Yes, thank you.
Now, here's an interesting question. Does Maya exist in the mind? No. The mind exists in Maya. Another way to look at it is Maya is the term we use for macrocosmic or universal ignorance. We usually use the word avidya for individual ignorance. Why do we make that distinction? So, Walt, you may get enlightened and your ignorance is gone. You know you are Brahman, you know the world is just like a dream. That doesn't make the rest of the world disappear for other people. The galaxies continue to spin, stars supernova. People become president and stop being president. All keeps going on. The Lord's Maya. Even though you as an individual may see it all as mithya, falseness or illusion. Good question. Was that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
All right, that's all the time we have. Let's sit.